Welcome, everybody, to Edge of the Rabbit Hole here on Connecting the Universe. I'm your host, author, and researcher, Mike Ricksecker, with my co-host, Victoria Mundae, as always, and our chat moderator, Alina, moderating the chat down there below. We have a fantastic show up for you tonight. We have two special guests with us. Ronny LeBlanc, author, researcher. You'll recognize him from Expedition Bigfoot. Scotty Davis is with us. Scotty the Medium from huge on TikTok. He's a psychic medium, remote viewer, really wonderful couple of guys here that we have with us. And we are going to be talking about the mysterious drones, specifically New Jersey, or at least we're going to concentrate there for a while because Scott is from New Jersey, where all of this is happening, and he has some clips from there that he's going to be sharing with us. And then Ronny has been like on top of this. Ronny, I don't know how many videos you've been posting a day on this, but it's been amazing how you've been
there's been so much stuff. It's been wild. Yeah,
it really has been. So yeah, I can't wait to dive into all of this with both of you. I do want to start with Scott though, because you're like right there, like ground zero for all of this activity that's been going on. So I'm just going to real quickly share here what I think is like a really interesting, compelling clip. This is the first one you sent me.
No, there's two of them.
Yeah, it's weird looking.
I'm scared.
I mean, you watch it and it sounds like a small plane, but you look at it and it's obviously not. So, Scott, what's going on here?
So that was very odd because we have helicopters fly over us all the time. I know the difference between the military helicopters that come through, the civilian helicopters, news helicopters. We have everything. Not that I'm an expert in any aircraft. However, I do know the difference between those helicopters and also the airplanes that fly over our head always are headed off to or leaving Newark. So I'm pretty familiar with the flight pattern as well. And that thing was so low and in such a strange spot while I was watching three other floating orbs that were probably about 3 or 4 miles away. I couldn't tell if they were drones or something else, but they were staying still. They're not stars. They're not in the usual place that I would expect anything like that. So
is that the second clip that you sent?
Yeah. So you can see that they're just kind of floating out there and they stayed for hours just sitting there. So as you can hear, my daughter was out with me and we're just walking the dog and I happened to hear it coming. So I flipped the phone on real quick and that guy just flew by me. It's I've seen 3 of those since all of this started now. And how we're located is that was my backyard and it was flying, that helicopter, I believe is probably flying, what we'd say south to north. And then to my west is a military naval base. It's about 150 yards, the property from where I sit. And that's where the majority of those things have been seen. But they've also been seen over other critical infrastructure here in my town. So everybody is pretty up in arms about it.
Yeah, when you look at like some of the I don't know, heat maps of New Jersey, it seems like they're concentrated in some real specific areas, but it's still kind of spread out here. And Ronny, I know you've kind of been on top of like, where all in the world these things have been seen. So what do you think?
It is interesting that they seem to be concentrated around some of these nuclear power locations or near military bases. And we're hearing drone reports, but also these orbs. And I haven't been able to find the specific clip just yet, but someone had talked about seeing a drone morph from out of an orb. And we hear these stories going back to, and we hear these stories of, the airship sightings and the UFO sightings from the 50s and 60s, that these UFOs were actually mimicking the technology of the time. And it just happens to be drones at this point in time. And people are hearing, like with that propeller noise, but just sounds a little bit different than the UFO, these different orbs. But we've heard different theories that Iran has some ship off the Atlantic coast, that these drones are coming out of the ocean. There was a reporter that witnessed 50 of them coming out. And we're also hearing that there is a rogue nation or some sort of terrorist group that has a WMD planted somewhere, and that these drones are actually sniffing out gamma rays, I start to think that these drones are almost like that cover for what other people are seeing. They're seeing these drones, but these seems to be looking for these drones or other UFOs that people are seeing, that these craft are around. That's my immediate feeling. And we've just had all these different congressional and Senate hearings about UAPs and non-human intelligence, and now here we are with this. It just seems pretty evenly timed.
Yeah, and the government they're repeatedly denying everything. You have the Pentagon saying this is not a Department of Defense asset. You have these other organizations like the FBI coming forward and saying, they're not us. We don't know what they are. Don't shoot at them, which I also say don't shoot at them, because bullets fall from the sky. So if you miss, are you going to hurt your neighbor? So don't be doing that. I will say, just as my own commentary, I've been hard pressed to believe the looking for a bomb or sniffing out nuclear material, that sort of thing, just because these drones seem to be primarily coming out at night. And if it was as serious as something as a bomb or nuclear material, I mean, this has been going on for a month now. You would have these things out all during the day. You would have some sort of you would have people deployed to try to search these things out. You'd have bomb sniffing dogs out there. So I've taken a step back from that. But the orb aspect has really intrigued me, because Ronnie, like you said, I've heard people say they've seen these drones kind of morph out of the orbs. I've even heard some the orbs are going after the drones and knocking them out of the sky. But you look at some of this. So, and Ronnie, you initially sent Scott and I these sort of photos where this was a photographer using a Sony camera, professional photographer. So you see that, and then like ABC News captured this, which is really like a little bit of a blurrier version of that. And these are they're orbs in the sky. So and with my work, portals to the stars and all that, it's, to me, are these the portals or stargates or whatever, if these drones are from, whether it's something extraterrestrial or interdimensional alongside of us or something like that, or these like the gateway to come in here? What do you think?
The interesting piece is the fact that they were asking the public for help and identifying what these things were. What was so significant for me, that they're like, they don't know what's going on, or do they? The fact that this is the same kind of stuff that happened in 1952 in July over DC, where they're seeing these spherical type shaped objects flying in formation, V formations. We're hearing about these flights of these drones, or these lights in cluster formations, or shutting off when approached. They're not being detected by radar or giving off any type of heat signature. So they just seem to be at another level than what we currently have in our repository.
Yeah. Now, Scott, I do want to go over your second clip here, because this does seem to be more of that maybe orb manifestation.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, isn't it?
It's cool.
Yeah.
And you're a psychic medium. You're a remote viewer. Have you been able to really, I don't know, for lack of a better term, tune into what might be going on up there with these orbs and these drones?
So this is pretty remarkable. The universe is an interesting place. So Ronnie here texts me, and he says, "Hey, have you tried to remote view any of these things?" And I was kind of being like a little bit coy about it, because I felt a little defeated. I had tried a little bit, and then I really gave it the good go. And every time I got into my space where I do remote viewing, I felt like I was getting hit with an electric fence. I was like getting into that space and I was trying to tune into it. And it just felt like electricity hitting me. And then all of a sudden in my vision, it would just be like streaks of light and almost like a barrier to keep anybody doing that, to keep them back. And I don't know, maybe like a half hour later or so, Ronnie sent me a text message of that orb you showed earlier. And I was like, that is essentially what I'm seeing when I try to get close to these things in that way. And the only time that's ever happened is when we did blind remote viewing and somebody asked me to check out a government black site, and I got hit with basically what I call confusion or just the inability to focus and know what I'm looking at. So there seems to be some kind of masking or cloaking around either those drones or the orbs in a way that unfortunately I don't know how to get around at this time.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost kind of reminiscent. I don't know if you saw this one. I think it was yesterday, where there was a amateur drone pilot, and he has a podcast, and I can't remember the guy's name or the podcast, but he had sent his drone up chasing after one of these things. He said his drone was fully charged, was only up there like 3 minutes chasing after one of these drones, and entered into restricted airspace. His drone suddenly went down into like whole shutdown procedure, like totally being blocked from that airspace. And this other drone he was chasing just kept going right on.
Yeah, they said it's happening with helicopters as well. Military helicopters that try to chase it, the drone will just go dark and it takes off, and nobody knows where it went because it doesn't have a signature, which is scary. On if it's another military, that's very scary. As you and I being military fellas, we know the military has some pretty advanced equipment out there, and they know how to find the bad guys. So if it's bad guys with better tech than the U.S., that's a little bit worrisome. If it's other dimensional or interstellar, that's also another problem. Like, what are we going to do if it turns out to be something like that?
Yeah, and that's something, Scott, you and I both being military guys, this would be something, at least, my experience, that if it was something from some sort of foreign adversary, that our guys would be right on top of that, and they might go black ops, and we wouldn't even see it happen. But then, a day or two after the activity starts, we suddenly wouldn't see anymore because they would have taken care of it, kind of behind the public's eye, and we wouldn't hear of it anymore. But this keeps going on and on.
Yeah, especially in, like Ronnie said, like they're asking for our help. Like they're like, help us figure out what this is. If you see where they're going, let us know. If you know where they're coming from and going to, tell us. If you can identify it, let us know. And I think that a lot of us have become a lot more in tune with what's in the sky. I work a midnight shift outside, so I'm constantly looking at the stars when I have a little break time. And I think that a lot of Americans haven't done that. They haven't taken that time and glued to our screens. So now they're taking the time to look up at the stars, and they're identifying a lot of things they may not have seen before. And now that is where more and more drones are being spotted, right? Because not everybody's looking up. And if you do, you just kind of brush it off, right? But now we're in tune with it. And who knows if that's making things more hysterical or we're just paying attention. I don't know.
Well, I think that
the two biggest times, yeah, sorry. The two biggest times for UFO sightings, they say, based on reports, are 4th of July and New Year's Eve. So we're right around that corner where we're going to have that big time period where we're looking up, and that's whether that's fireworks or what have you. That seems to be an attractant to the UFOs, the orbs. But I think it was like 2 days ago, Trump said something really significant in a press conference, that the government knows, and he's not sure why they're not saying. He feels like the public should know, but he said there is something strange going on. And he goes, if this was a foreign adversary, they would have obliterated them by now.
Right.
So there seems to be some indication that they're trying to tell us that this is something else. And the fact that when Scott was trying to remote view, that he was almost hitting this defensive barrier or fence. Scott, do you feel like that was what you encountered before when you were trying to investigate that black site, or do you feel like this was something that was more elevated in regards to
this was way different energy? So the black site just felt like somebody's holding a secret from you and you shouldn't know. If you guys asked me to remote view a Walmart without me knowing, I'd probably figure it out pretty quick that it was some sort of store with a lot of things in it. And you guys have been witness to some of the remote viewing that I can do. I'm pretty accurate. So when it came to this, it was just like getting hit in the head with a lamp. It was crazy. I never had that happen before. I do a lot of remote viewing live on my TikTok, and we have a lot of fun with it. And I name objects in people's homes, and sometimes we get in trouble because I say things I shouldn't. And it's a lot of fun. This was a serious attempt at it, and it was a serious defense up against it.
Victoria, I do want to toss it to you because I'm sure you have questions. You usually have a whole list.
I do, but I'm trying to be selective. Respectfully.
Well, select a good one then.
I disagree with every single one of you, respectively. Because
wow.
boom, mic drop, I'm out. Okay, because
okay, I'm gonna kick her out of the chat. There we go.
I'm not in. Haven't been in the chat in years. You might remember our show we did last year about this time of astrology, and I was talking about the year 2026 going into 2027. When 2 planets are going to be conjunct in Gemini, that's when we're going to have our first real UFO event that everyone's going to see. I think this is smoke and mirrors, because what do you do to a child? Like when you want it to look somewhere else, you take the keys and you jangle it. So what if it really is just like a couple of drones looking for something else, and whoever is doing it did a Where's Waldo thing and threw up 800,000 drones, and now you don't know where to look because Waldo's everywhere. They're looking for something, I think. And I don't want to go into my deep conspiracy, because I think it's Elon Musk, because who's got the money, who's got the technology, who owns the space companies, and who's buying up all the land in Texas.
His brother Kimball has a drone company. I mean, that is great, but yeah, and he has a drone entertainment company. But the only issue with that is this is happening all over the world. So it's not just in New Jersey. It's seemingly happening in Russia, in the UK, in other areas at the same time, and they're seeing very similar things. And that's where I kind of go, okay, well, everyone's like, oh, it's just us, our technology. I don't think so. I feel like
I've heard of it in Australia, the Netherlands, Ukraine. Yeah.
Who's the richest man on the planet? Wild. Musk. The other reason I'm saying it's because also with astrology, which everyone needs to study astrology. That's all there is, because it's never wrong. You remember the stock market, Mike? You didn't get out in time.
Years ago, you're only like a week or two off, but that was a pretty significant dip there. Yeah.
Okay. So according to astrology, there's something happening to the currency next year, and we're going to get depegged, and we're no longer going to be the world currency. Who's deep in Bitcoin and digital currency? Well, it's Elon Musk, who has inserted himself into President Trump's entourage, if you want to call it Elon Musk. Respectfully, I'm saying. So, but who knows? Who knows what it is?
Are you saying he's the Antichrist?
I won't go that far.
I do remember something in one of those quatrains that Nostradamus said something about this time of our existence, that a silver-tongued devil was going to come to power and we were going to have a big problem. Some of those, I just said to my wife, I was like, I got to go back and reread some of that stuff because it's pretty on par.
In the Bible, it says when the trumpet sounds. And I think that was a misinterpretation for when Trump sounds. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Well, and when you talk like silver-tongued devils and stuff like that, I think a lot of, because I've read quite a bit of Nostradamus and stuff, but a lot of it seems generalized. You could find in any generation somebody that there's our silver-tongued devil. Every generation has one or two or three. So yeah, you could make something fit into that type of compartment. Yeah,
because when 9/11 hit, I was working in a bookstore and everyone's calling me, do you have a copy of Nostradamus? So we're running back there looking up Nostradamus. I'm like, this doesn't say crap. But I would never call Elon Musk the Antichrist, because I would not want to insult the Antichrist. Just saying.
Well, they said he would come in as I guess with a light, and so I always think of Starlink, and I think of solar and all this kind of stuff. So yeah.
So. Anyway, he's buying up Texas around San Antonio and Austin for some reason. He's building a compound. So I don't know I know what he's doing, but most people don't know what he's doing. So he's one to watch. Anyway,
Well, I certainly don't rule out some sort of distraction or some sort of false flag operation or something like that. Because we've seen that happen many times throughout
oh yeah,
history, where take a look over here while we're doing something over there. So I'm certainly not ruling that out. I don't necessarily.
This
Y-
it,
Go
it
ahead.
kind of reminds me of Roswell. It reminds me of Roswell in a way where
Yeah.
somebody came out and said, "Hey, we have a crashed craft," and then quickly there was a pivot to be like, "Nope, that didn't happen." It was a weather balloon, and we're hearing that the White House doesn't know what's going on, and then the idea that these things are gamma ray drone sniffing, but then the Department of Energy just announced like an hour or two ago, like that's not the case.
Right.
So we're right back
Okay.
at it again, that there is no definition what's actually happening. It's not us. They're reaffirming that this isn't us. So who is it?
It's us. Respectfully. Yeah. Yeah, because if you want to think about it, smoke and mirrors, while we're up looking at drones, and people were freaking out because there was a drone flying over Fort Worth. Well, it turns out it was a military thing the other night. One single drone, was drifting over Texas. But while we're all looking up at the stars in the heavens and things, they just decided to vote that TikTok is going to be banned. And who has a big stake in a social media company? Well,
Well, they've tried to go down that road before.
My issue is, they just recently, we found out that last December in 2023 that there were drones that were over Langley and that actually shut down the base.
Right.
We hear about this. Why did we hear about this so much later? And then Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which was the place where they apparently had taken the Roswell crash, that was shut down.
We also had
why do that?
We had even a Marine Corps reserve base here in my town about 2 or 3 years ago, broad daylight, the middle of the day, before really commercial drones were as available as they are now. A drone dropped down into the middle of this base out on a major highway and sat there for about 30 minutes. The military was calling the local PD for answers. The PD was calling the FBI. Nobody knew what it was. It hovered there in the middle of the afternoon. It hung out, and then it just took off. And nobody really asked any questions after that because it didn't do anything. It just sat there and made everybody look dumb because nobody knew what it was. So again, this isn't the first drone sighting we've had that's hanging out over sensitive areas.
Yeah,
the only other thing
for the most part,
from
what we've seen, these drones aren't actually doing anything. They're just flying in the sky. And people, we have a lot of different theories as to what they may be doing. But when you just see one fly across the sky, it doesn't really seem to be doing much at all except flying. And how many of these are now that this has become so popular, how many of these drones that are up there now are just copycats? Somebody could be tossing up their own drone and taking photos of it so they can get views on TikTok or whatever.
So I did talk to my buddy. Yeah, sorry. I did talk to my buddy who's in the intelligence community, military, in DC, and him and his girlfriend witnessed 20 of these fly over their house in a no-fly zone. And he's done some stuff with the Space Force. And he was like, I don't know what these things are. So here you have someone that's actually done some stuff with Space Force and intelligence community in DC and watched 20 of these things fly over their house in a no-fly zone. So I think there's concern within the military and groups themselves that they're like, this isn't us, or this is some other group that's been kind of off grid for a while that's starting to slowly reveal themselves, which is what we've been hearing for the past few years within certain circles, that they're going to reveal who they are.
Well, then why doesn't our government take one down and study it?
3 points. I have 3 points now.
Well, the talk is that we already did, right? That we did have David Grush say that we do have reversal programs, that we do have the craft, that we do have.
I always figured he was talking about Roswell, with that, the idea that we've had crash material.
I think he's talking. Yeah, and I think he's talking. There's been some recent ones too that they're, fatalities that are connected to some of these situations, and also anybody that's been working on some of the stuff has had the hitchhiker effect, where they
Yeah.
have these green orbs coming through their house and flying around, and they're like, "What? This isn't." I don't know. There's something another level here that's a little peculiar.
Right. Yeah. Which brings it. So if Elon Musk is indeed in charge of all of these drones, what about the orbs? Where are they coming from? We
Yeah.
don't know how to. I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend. But I don't know that we know how to make plasma orbs flow through the air,
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
that looks like a
very
plasma
interesting.
orb, and you guys know what that one is?
A star.
But yeah,
I don't know.
but it looks very, very similar to.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's actually Sirius, but
Are
I
you
mean,
serious?
yeah,
I had
exactly.
to. I had
We
to.
do have to. We do have to rely on the people who are taking these videos and photographs. One, to be truthful, and two, to label them correctly. That's why I even downloaded, for me, I downloaded it's called like Star Walker,
Right.
just so I could see where everything was in the sky and definitely make sure that I was like, all right, those are not stars, they're drones and they're floating. The airplanes are flying 25,000, 30,000 feet in the air. You can see them nice and clear, moving back and forth. The drones were hovering, and then that other helicopter-like drone came across. And again, we have helicopters all the time, and it's cute. That thing was smaller than a helicopter, but probably about the size of my wife's Subaru. It was big, and I just don't know why would they be coming so close to restricted airspace, because we live right here near Weapons Station Earl, which is the second largest weapon naval station on the East Coast. All of the munitions that would be deployed across the ocean over to anywhere over the Atlantic come from here. And at one point, we did have some nuclear weapons housed in the area for sure many years ago, but they were here. And then on top of that, and I'm way newer to all this UFO, UAP, alien stuff than you guys. I'm really into the ghost stuff, but I love learning. As I'm learning more about the history of my town, there are 2 times where people wrote articles about UFOs and things like that landing here in our town, and it was around those hot times of the World War II era, and like, why are they here and what are they doing, right? And then we have all kinds of other strange and eerie things that happen around here. And I think that a lot of the hot spots where we're seeing the drones are the same places where we have all that kind of strange paranormal.
Well, Scott, before we went on air, you were talking about a location there where like the troops on the base there don't even really like walking around at night. So it sounds like
Yeah,
a
so
pretty suspect area.
yeah, I'm local law enforcement. I never speak on behalf of my police department, so we can talk like that. But for myself, I am very good at talking to people and coaxing things out of them. And I asked some on-duty Navy guys about some of the paranormal stuff I had witnessed in the area. And one of the guys said, "Yeah," he said, "we do not walk these tracks at night. There's train tracks for transporting things back and forth on the base." And he swore up and down that there were Bigfoot in the woods. Up and down, swore. He's like, "We won't go out there. We've heard the guttural calls, and we don't have black bears where I live in New Jersey. I've lived here my whole life, never saw one. And if they are here, they're very, very elusive, like Bigfoot. But we've had other things, like I've personally witnessed an owl the size of a human being. It was a white owl perched in the middle of a tree in broad daylight, and it scared the living daylights out of me because I'd never seen anything like that. So much so that the guy I was riding with, I stomped on the brakes, and he went flying forward, and he was like, 'You saw that too?' And I was like, 'Good, somebody else saw it,' because I thought I was losing it." And it was another sworn officer. Yeah. So we both saw it, and it's all happening in that same space. All these drones are hovering in that line right across the property into the base.
Wow.
Was it an owl?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
To me, it looked like an owl, but
Well, no, that's what people say.
Yeah. I'm not an experiencer that I know of, but I have been getting more and more into those sorts of things. The other clip that you showed, Mike, came from a young woman who I was investigating for ghosts, and all of a sudden I found myself running up against a lot of questions I couldn't answer about UFOs, UAPs, alien abduction experiencers. So I turned to you guys because you have way more knowledge of this stuff. And she sent me, like, a day after I caught my drone, She sent me 12 minutes of lights doing that in the sky.
Oh, wow.
I sent you a small clip of what she had, and it was right over a spot where people have talked about being abducted. They themselves experienced strange things coming out of the woods, lights before this that they couldn't explain, and just so much more. It's really getting interesting.
That's interesting. That ties in. So, question here out of the chat: rather than like searching for a bomb or something like that, what about this? Could these drones be searching for crashed UAP? If that's such a hotspot over there for that sort of activity, what do you think?
It could be. The thing is, we live in such a populated area. I think that we would have seen, I mean, if it's not cloaked or something, I don't know. I feel like we would have seen something fall from the sky. But recently, there have been a lot of meteorites making their way down, right? There was an astrological event recently where we had a lot of meteors. And before that, a week or two before all the drone stuff was happening, I noticed there was a lot of things around the world where meteorites were landing in pretty big chunks. So maybe something did enter Earth's atmosphere that we're not aware of, and they are looking for it. That could be.
Yeah.
Okay, points now.
Go ahead.
Okay. Back when we were interviewing Jeremy Ray, like years ago, I was doing channeling then, and I remember telling you two that we have a back wall, and if we have not had full disclosure by this time, the extraterrestrials were going to come and say, "Dude, we're here." So could this not be like a test run, possibly putting this out there to see how people react? Drones everywhere. Is it extraterrestrials? Is it aliens? And as a military person, are you always up to date on what the latest hardware or airplanes or fighter whatevers? I mean, do they ever keep secrets from y'all? And then I saw a thing yesterday on some video on Facebook.
Well, can we take that first before you get to the other ones? Because otherwise, by the time you get to the other two, we'll forget that one.
Nope, this is a quick one, because the guy was going, look, there's three of them. They're standing there. They're in a row. They're not moving. And the person that was with him goes, "Dude, that's Orion's belt." So could a lot of this be mistaken? Not a lot, some of it. Okay, that's it.
All
military.
Right. So I mean, I would say, sure, you're going to have some things be like maybe some of these photos are an out of focus star, or maybe they're misidentifying maybe Starlink or the International Space Station, stuff like that. And that's what Scott was talking about before,
right?
Identifying these different things in the sky. I did in my blog article the other day, mention that it could be something like that sort of test. Of maybe it's not testing necessarily the technology, but testing our reaction to it.
Right.
We had the Brookings report back in 1960, but we also had that toilet paper epidemic a couple years ago where humanity really failed at that one. But is this another type of test? What do you guys think?
Ronnie?
I vote for that.
Well, yeah, I think the the Tic Tac incident. If we're talking about tests, that would have been a test with our military, right, with the Navy. But they seem to have known that certain area. There seems to be, for lack of a better term, like some civilization connected to the oceans, or at least they're hiding there, because 70% of our Earth is covered by water, and we keep on hearing reports of these things coming in and out of the ocean, but also over these freshwater reservoirs, which would draw concern. The fact that they're saying there's no national security concerns, fearful that something's going on, and then they can't have an answer, and they said it's not us, it's not our technology, and we don't believe it's any of our foreign adversaries. Who else is doing this?
Right.
So
who else do you have?
It just seems to be we're getting a bunch of mixed signals, and we're hearing some different theories, and just see what happens.
Yeah. When it comes to the military stuff, of course, they keep us in the dark about a ton of stuff, which is fine by me, because I need the good guys to be well ahead of the bad guys. So I don't need to know what my fellow military friends are doing when I don't talk to them for 6 months. Thank you for doing it. I appreciate you. And don't tell me anything, because I don't want anybody showing up my door asking me questions about stuff I shouldn't have known anyway. So I'm totally cool with not knowing. I like Mike's take on it, that perhaps there is something where they're testing our our mettle a little bit to see how we're going to react to things like this. But I said the same thing to one of my best friends who's also a law enforcement officer. I was like, bro, people went and bought all the toilet paper. And that was the first, I was like, because like they weren't ever going to be able to use it again. So we failed the first time. And what's interesting is now, we're not panicking. People are just really interested.
Curious.
And is it because we've had so much in the last couple of years of like, things leading up to a disclosure possibly, that everybody now, like all the comments on TikTok that I follow are like, well, it's about time, and everybody's like, it wouldn't be surprising to me. I just want to know if I have to pay rent tomorrow, or are they going to be here and they're going to clean up the environment and we don't have to worry as much as we were. Like, those are the sorts of things that people are really worried about. They want to know about their financial future more than anything. Like what's going to happen if little green men enter the atmosphere and come out and shake our hand? And then, how are some of us going to react to that? Me, I'm a pretty easygoing guy. As long as they're not trying to fight me, we're good. But the rest of the world, who knows?
Yeah. Well, I have to throw up the Men in Black toilet paper meme. So Will Smith is saying, people are smart, they can handle it. And Tommy Lee Jones, a person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and it. And then, there's the toilet paper ruckus. But so yeah, we failed that one. But yeah, you're right. We have had over the last couple of years all these different congressional hearings and these sorts of things over the UAP. So it's been in our conversation more. So I could certainly see that it might be another test. Okay, fine. We're talking about it. What would be your reaction to, because people are talking like Project Bluebeam and things like this, alien invasion, but these things aren't attacking. They're just hovering in the sky.
And I always, at the beginning, when you put out the disclaimer, don't shoot. We don't want to start anything if it is not our government. Don't shoot at them.
Go, Ronnie. Ronnie, it sounded like you had something you were trying to say. We lose him?
Yeah. The interesting piece is, over the past 2 years, we've been hearing the term interdimensional and transmedium. And it's interesting that Google announced on Friday the 13th, on the full moon, that their quantum computer chip achieved a calculation that would take 20 septillion years. That's longer than the life of the universe, which indicated that we are living in a multiverse, or they showed some significance that there is other dimensions that we're living alongside of. So I feel like maybe AI and these different technologies are bringing us to a certain truth point that you can't deny anymore, and the public will find out. So we have to have this disclosure point.
Yeah, there's been a lot along those lines over the last several years, because you've had, our theoretical physics has been talking about multiple dimensions for a number of years, like up to 11 hyperspatial dimensions. But then you've had stuff like the Anita Project out of Antarctica talking about parallel universes running in reverse time. You've had scientists in the lab a couple of years ago creating a baby wormhole in the lab and things like this. So yeah, it seems like we're kind of getting closer and closer to this idea, like you said, Ronnie, of interdimensionality, and the fact that there are you had the Harvard research paper with that, what they call the Harvard research paper. I've had a brief interaction with the guy that was from Montana that was on that, where they were, here's a published paper talking about, hey, there may be extraterrestrials living on the moon in another dimension alongside us, walking amongst us. So yeah, we're getting more and more of this type of talk and discussion in our modern day, which is wonderful because it was so taboo just 40, 50 years ago.
Well, speaking for the woo-woo community that I live in, they've been saying that any interaction we have with extraterrestrials that are coming, they're all coming to help us. And so we have evolved enough. Perhaps we learned from the toilet paper. And speaking of, eggnog is gone from this town. There's no eggnog in this town. I'm thinking aliens like the eggnog for some reason. I don't know. They like the nog. But anyway, whatever extraterrestrials come to visit us in 2026/2027 are coming to help us, because we are, I don't want to say on the brink of annihilation, but we're getting pretty darn close. They're just going to push us back on course.
Interesting. All right. All right. Okay.
The woo woo.
It's
The woo woo.
it's funny because I am the least woo woo guy who does what I do. I live in a very like evidentiary space when it comes to doing the things that I do. And I do like hearing all the woo woo, but I always have to try to stay as grounded as possible when it comes to it, because you have to bring the evidence along with the idea of the things that you're discussing. And waiting for things to happen down the line is not evidentiary. It's just the timeline that things are going to unfold on. So as we watch things happen, we have to stay very grounded. We have to understand and let people bring the evidence forward. And then we have to make very educated guesses at this point as to what's happening, but always stay grounded. And I'm not saying that ET isn't going to step out and, help us out, but you got to see it first.
How close to the ocean are you, if I can ask?
About 4 miles.
Oh, okay. So those could be USOs that are just like coming up and then going back down.
Yeah. And again, it's not the first time. I live, not only do I live just a few miles from the ocean, but the bay that goes from New Jersey to Manhattan is here as well. We have had over the years, to anybody who would talk to me about it, dozens of USO sightings in the area. A lot of people are afraid to talk about those sorts of things. They'd rather talk to you about ghosts than they would aliens and USOs and UFOs in the sky. Just even one of my very good friends on duty, law enforcement, he called me several years ago and he said, "You need to come over to the other side of town right now because I'm seeing something and you're the guy." And I was like, "All right, I'll get there as quick as possible. What are you looking at?" And he says, right over north of me, there are 3 lights in the sky, and they're kind of dancing around in a weird motion. He said, and it was like 2:30 in the morning or so. He's like, "They're not helicopters, they're not airplanes. They're literally like dancing and playing a game." And I was like, "Just stay on the phone with me and tell me what's going on." And he said they were just like the video that Mike showed you. They were coming apart and coming together, dancing around. And this is like when I talk about people who are like cops, cop, like square jawline, crew cut, the whole thing. But by the time I got there, it was funny. Like I roll up and he was like, "You just missed this entire thing. It was crazy." And it's just one of those things where we know that they're happening. There are credible people talking about it, but we have to have, I think everybody witnessed it. Like kind of now the drones, right? Maybe they, again, just testing the water with us. Like, how are you guys going to react? What's going to happen when one of these things land? Are you guys going to attack it? Are you going to cautiously approach it? Or are you going to stay back and wait for the government to show up and do something about it?
Yeah, because I've seen things like that out in West Texas. Like you said, they would dance around, they come together, they're one color, they're split, and they're different colors, and they just do, and then they're gone.
Yeah. So, and to me, it means something when it's somebody who has nothing to gain by telling it. You and I and Ronnie and Mike, obviously, we love this stuff. Right. We're into it. And we want to know. We're really looking for it. When somebody is just like, "Hey, I was like, out of the car taking a walk around a building, and I looked it up and saw these things," that person they have a lot to lose, because what if I don't believe them and I go running my mouth about who they are and that they're crazy, right? So, yeah, there's a lot to be said about the people who are witnessing it and what they have to say about it.
Yeah, because I was out there with my husband and daughter, my baby. I'm like, "Oh, look at that," So it's not like I was out there searching for anything, but anyway.
And then we hear that up near Ronnie over here, there was a lot of orb activity happening in the last couple of nights. Is that right? Was he there?
I think our connection with Ronnie is it kind of goes in and out.
It's probably
wasn't he saying no? Wasn't he saying they were biological the other day? I was really curious about that.
Ronnie, you with us?
Yeah, there's been a little bit of a lag here, but okay. Yeah, there was just, even last night we were at the botanical garden for Christmas lights, and we had our whole family there. And I've been watching the skies left and right. And earlier this morning, someone that was there last night had filmed a UFO that seemingly was mimicking the lights from the botanical garden, the colors and the purples and everything else. And I had posted on Facebook, and I'm like, "Holy cow, these things literally are seemingly everywhere."
Yeah.
Let me ask you something, Ronnie. With the orbs that have been seen along with all of this activity that's going on, because with your research, again, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, that's commonly reported with that sort of phenomena, that along with the Sasquatch that people are claiming to witness out in the wilderness, they're also seeing along with that, some of these orbs or flashes of light or something like that. So how similar is that to what we're seeing now with these orbs in the sky along with the drones?
Swamp gas.
Yeah, I guess we'll wait a minute for the
It's
feed to
swampy.
catch up.
Yeah.
Or I don't
If
know,
they-
his expression is stayed in one spot. So maybe
Okay,
it
well,
just
let me ask you too, if they are biological lights or whatever, or what does that mean exactly? Is it some sort of intelligence, or what does that mean?
I could say
There's-
something really, really outside. Go ahead, Ron.
There's talk about these plasma beings, this other form of matter. Dr. Salvatore Pai, who actually happens to have a ton of patents with the U.S. Navy in and around some of this, what we would consider UFO technology. And he recently was talking about what if there is this other type of life form that's been living alongside us that we've just discovered is real. And I've seen my wife and I together had seen two what looked like in the sky, like a lot of these different descriptions, and they were the size of like this nuts and bolts kind of craft, but they seem to be living creatures. That whole Hermes, as above, so below,
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about that comment is, you have a lot of like Native American legends, indigenous legends that talk about this sort of thing, about the other beings living alongside of us. I mean, it's not that particular story isn't new. It's just, our science talking about it seems to be new, where this was, these were traditions that were handed down, over thousands of years from the indigenous peoples. And now our science is finally piggybacking on top of that. And Ronnie, I remember the last time that you were on, you were talking about the Algonquin and, places that they would kind of step onto, like a rock or whatever, and would take them someplace to this. Yeah. So what do you guys think?
Yeah. I mean, the fact that they're talking about this idea of portals or places that there were, reports of them, certain tribes actually learning to use the portals, to access them, to go back and forth, and people had witnessed them coming out of these portals. So I think there's some knowledge that not everybody has access to. And there's been things that have been passed down between some of these tribes, other secrets of the universe, that it seems like sometimes we hear about the 4 portals that are going to be opened up on Christmas Eve by the Pope at the Vatican,
Right.
Indicate that we're in some strange times ahead, or awakening ones at least.
I don't like
That's
Exactly. I
astrology.
totally forgot about that. The Pope's going to open up all these
It's
portals while the
astrology.
drones are around. Yeah.
That's pure astrology. I just want to throw that out there.
Yes.
So it's funny to say that about the Native Americans. So where the town that I live in
Talk about that.
was heavily Native American, Lenni Lenape, and right down the road where a lot of these drones are being seen, and all this other paranormal stuff seems to happen. I came across a book that was published about 100 years ago, and it had an article in it written by a doctor/author who would speak with the Native Americans here. And there's a part of the town where all this stuff is kind of happening. And the Native American, told the white guy, he said, down there, we don't go down there. The only person that's allowed to go down in that part of this area is the medicine man, because it's very haunted and very sacred, and nobody should be going down there. And wouldn't you know it, that is a part of the restricted space that that's out there now.
Of course it is.
Has anyone tried to figure out a correlation between the drone sightings in Native American lands? Because when you mentioned that, the ones we're having up here is right by the Alabama Coshada, and it's just right on the border of Oklahoma, where they have all the casinos and all the reservations and stuff.
So in a way to not make anything pointing any fingers or seeming negative, I have not done that. However, it is a correlation that exists at the moment in my town, and I made the correlation immediately, because anytime there's something very, very strong paranormal ghost, UFO, or otherwise related, it is always in the same, basically 3 or 4 spots. And it's always the same 3 or 4 kinds of stories. And now I have another layer to add.
Because look at Skinwalker. They do all the shape-shifting stories and legends and mythologies
Which
and all the stuff they're having up there.
I have that here as well by other sworn officers. Sworn officers telling me stories. I thought they were pulling my leg, but as a matter of fact, 2 different guys at 2 different times told me the same exact story. And when I asked one if it was okay to talk to the other one about the story, because I said, hey, somebody else told me the same story that works here. And he's like, all right, let's chat with them. And they had the same story for each other, and it happened in the same spot. And I was like, guys, this is classic, like, paranormal activity. And you guys witnessed something. One, a former Marine and a now hunter, and the other guy's a photographer. They're very good at understanding what they're looking at, and they know what they just know. Like, you just know they're being accurate in what they're saying. So yeah, there's a lot of very interesting stuff here. So if anybody's listening to this, you should take a look at where the drones are coming up and other UAP sort of things that have happened in the past, how they connect to the past, the history of where you are, and what other kinds of paranormal stuff is kicking up. Is this UFO stuff kicking up is it kicking up Bigfoot sightings? It's certainly kicked up orb sightings, that's for sure. Is it kicking up ghost stories? Are the poltergeist acting up? Is there other things that we don't understand being stirred up and the dust is going, and we need to keep our eye on the prize and understand it as a totality, right?
Yeah, because my family is from Alabama, Coshada tribe, which is in East Texas, which is where a lot of Bigfoot sightings are. And I've always heard there was a correlation between Bigfoot and UFOs. So
Ronnie knows that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Ronnie's arena right there. So yeah, I have always noticed that even though they,
like I do expect cryptid sightings to start popping up now in these different areas because of all this activity, just from the history of these reports that starts to happen, and I do expect that to start popping up.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, what else is going to start happening? But the military, even though they try to keep this separation, they have always been interested in what we would call more supernatural phenomena. I mean, and not just here worldwide, but we've seen like Scotty, with what you do with your remote viewing, we had Project Stargate. We saw like the Rendlesham Forest incident. Well, Rendlesham, that area with Bent Waters and all that, was already considered a rather supernatural hotspot, and they have these bases there, and then you have the big UFO sighting. And then like out in Egypt, one of the most mysterious pyramid areas that's out there, what they call the unfinished pyramid, that has these massive huge chambers and just some mysterious materials found down there like 100 years ago. Well, it's on a military installation. You can't get to it these days. And it's a military installation that a lot of people say that they believe is, that they actually have a working Stargate and these sorts of things. It's kind of the rumors coming out of there. Can't substantiate it, but still, it's the it's the stories coming out of there that these different military groups around the world do have an interest in the paranormal and supernatural. And yeah, like you were saying, it seems like when things like this start kicking up, well, what more is going to happen?
Yeah, it's really cool. I love it. Yeah, and it brings more people into what we're doing. We're not all crazy. I always tell people I don't wear crystals on my head all of the time. I do love exploring it. And as long as everybody's being respectful about it and we're understanding each other's points of view and just talking about it rationally, I think that this could lead to, if somebody does step out of one of these aircraft, it could lead to some really good things for us as people, as long as we also remain rational and understand that hopefully who's ever coming out is here to help us.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, on that note, I think we, for the most part, have been having a rational conversation about it. I have not seen a mass hysteria. I haven't seen people going crazy or anything like that. I think people are just genuinely curious. And yeah, there's a lot of different rumors and stories and theories out there. But I think for the most part, that makes a healthy discussion. I think some of the more fear-based ones, I think we can kind of pull back from a little bit. I don't think we're being invaded, or I personally don't think that there's a bomb. But this does cause us to have some nice conversations about these different topics.
Right. And I guess that's probably, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess that's probably why is like people, especially here in the States, we expect the government to say like it's X, Y, and Z, or we don't know why it is what it is, and give us a more clear idea. Because as a nation, it seems like we are being pretty chill about this. We're interested, but if the people who know what it is can just come up on TV and just be like, "Look, we 100% know what it is. Here's full," even if it's not the disclosure, if it's full disclosure on what that is, that would be great. So we could all get back to life and knowing if we're going to be having to pay the mortgage tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, I half expected them to, not even half expected, like maybe 75% expected them to come forward and say, yeah, we're doing some testing. We can't tell you what the testing is and just leave it at that, right?
Which we'd all be happy about. Okay.
Yeah, we would be fine with it. But they've repeatedly have said, we don't know what it is. And they've doubled and tripled down on all of that.
Wasn't there supposed to be a UFO invasion like December 3rd or December 6th? And then this happened like right after it or something.
Well,
that's what all the TikTokers were saying. But I don't always believe all those people.
Well, TikTok, you know.
Those TikTokers.
So, you know, UFO, UAP, drone, I mean, whatever. We're just calling, by the way, I mean, we're just calling them drones because they're doing what our human drones do, right? But we have speculated probably in the last 5 to 10 years since we've invented these aircraft that we know that we can commercially buy that maybe things are coming from other dimensions. And why would they send something biological here? They don't know if they can survive. We sent a rover to Mars, right? Twice now, because we know we can't hang out there for too long without, you know, a ton of resources. So it makes sense that if somebody was going to send a scout party in the military, we would do reconnaissance. We send something forward first. Now we use the really great recon planes. We put boots on the ground. And after the boots are on the ground and we make sure it's safe, we've scattered everything, then we send the mass party after that. So if that's what all biological things do, then it seems like it'd be the right thing.
Now, these drones, y'all have both seen them. Mike, have you seen them? Are they in Ohio yet?
There have been a couple of reports of them in Ohio. I haven't seen them here, but it's been raining for a couple of days anyway. So
okay, are they like drones? Do they kind of go, you know, or do they make noise? Do they have engines? Are they silent? I mean, the ones y'all have seen.
That first clip that we showed actually sounded like a small plane. I can play it again. Here.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a plane, you know, because let's be honest, my computer monitor is like this big, and I was like, I couldn't see what y'all were doing.
Yeah, here, I'll play it again for those that came in.
But the other ones, later. Are they silent?
As far as I can tell, I haven't got close to them.
I'll play this again for those that came in later.
No, there's two of them.
Yeah, it's weird looking.
I'm scared.
Yep.
Yeah. So you can hear it. It sounds like a helicopter. But like I said, when a helicopter is that low near my home, I can make out a helicopter with no problem. And then I know everybody says like, well, why does it have like FAA lighting on it? To be honest with you, I would never be able to answer that question because I'm not an aviation person. But if there are other beings here, maybe they're being safe for us. I don't know. UFOs seem to always have lights, though. If I was in a UFO, I'd probably keep the lights off so I can just observe. And maybe that's what they mostly do.
Yeah.
The two I've seen did not have lights. So just throwing that out there.
All right.
So, all right. Well, we are getting down toward the end of the show here. Just a couple of minutes left. We are going to kick over to the after show at the top of the hour. So those that are members of the Connected Universe portal, you guys hang tight because we'll go to the after show for a little bit with Ronnie and Scott here. But I do want to afford you guys the opportunity, of course, promote your social media. Scotty, I know you're huge on TikTok. Ronnie, your Instagram has been blowing up with all of this. So go for it, guys. Go ahead and promote yourselves here for a moment.
All right. So if anybody wants to find me, please, by all means, TikTok, Scotty the Medium. On Instagram, it's Scotty the NJ Medium. And my YouTube is where I've been doing a lot of work recently, and that is also Scotty the Medium. So come and hang out with me. We do we have a lot of drone stuff happening right now, and we're doing paranormal stuff as well.
All right. And Ronnie, I know we've got a little delay here for you. So I have everything linked down below, by the way, in the description. So I think we lost him again.
This poor guy. It's probably the drones.
It's the drones.
Damn drones.
Poor guy. So yeah, he's smiling. He's got the big smile, so he's good.
You can't trust a drone.
But you can find Ronnie, author Ronny LeBlanc, on his Instagram, and then in the description, I'm pretty sure I have his website, RonnyLeBlanc.com. So you can find him there. So, all right. Well, and I think we just completely lost Ronnie.
Man, drones.
Right. Yeah, the drones. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and kick over to the after show. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out tonight, talking about drones. There's going to be more stuff coming out on this here in the coming days. So stay tuned to all of our social media on this. So until next time, time really exists.